Two programs, two completely different trajectories, but can desperation be the catalyst for an upset in Houston, Texas? Oh yeah, it's Locked On Horned Frogs and Locked On Cougs. Play my music.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's going on, family? This is your favorite number one daily one-stop shop for everything TCU athletics and University of Houston. I am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, host of Locked On Horned Frogs. And right here next to me, I have the man with the smoothest voice in all of the Big 12. I have a guy who by day is a teacher. His passion is covering the University of Houston, but at nighttime he records lullabies for children on audiobooks because his voice is just that silky. Welcome here, Parker Ainsworth. How are you doing, my brother?
How could you not be doing well after that introduction, Darrion? Darrion, I usually open with a weird food question. Okay, and TCU week, I gotta. What are these purple corn dogs, man? What is going on with that?
Look, I hear that people love it. I think it was because it's not a corn dog. It just looks like a corn dog. If I'm not mistaken, it's a corn dog and it's filled with something that I don't think I wanted. I don't know what it was, but people say it's really good. Like it's actually extremely tasty. It just looks disturbing. But hey, as a man who loves purple, more power to you. I tip my hat. I tip my hat to anybody. Now this is interesting, because the corn dogs are one of the more interesting things to talk about when it comes to the program. Meanwhile, you are in year 2 of a rebuild. I love the contrast between these two teams. Both in the state, you just go ahead and get up 45. You get right to 3rd Ward. You'll be right there in Cougs' house. And this is a team that is building something special. This is a team that is building up. It's something that you've talked about all year long, is that they're on a steady progression upwards. And it feels like they're trending towards being a team that could be a contender in the future, while TCU is hoping to be there, but they've been inching farther and farther away from that, especially in this 2025 season. So seeing those two teams kind of have that contrast makes this a very interesting game to me, because if you would have told me before the season one team was going to be in this place, other team was going to be in this place, I think we would all assume that the script would be flipped. Everybody but you, because you called it early.
No, but I will say, if you had told me one of these teams was going to have 8 wins and one would have 6, I would have thought Houston would probably be the more likely team to have 6 right now. And I think it's interesting because obviously Sonny Dykes gets there with such a gangbusters start. I mean, we're talking about a year 2 of a rebuild for Houston, but year 1 for Sonny was like about as good as you can get up until that last game, right?
Yes.
And I guess that's kind of where I want to start on this is it weird to say that Sonny Dykes is on a big hot seat in the last 2 weeks, having won a college football playoff game? Not many Big 12 coaches consider they've won a college football playoff game, Darrion.
Yeah, no, I think he is. I think he's on a hot seat. I think that my gut tells me he's not on as hot of a seat as fans probably want him to be. I'll say that. I think that his seat is hot. I think it's warm. I don't know if it's hot enough to get fired after this season, but it's definitely a possibility. There's different types of situations. There's hot seats where you know you're not making it past this year. Like, you're not going to make it past this year. Dykes feels like he could get fired, but then you have the whole idea that there's a lot of other jobs out. I'm not the biggest fan of that thought process, though I understand it. I think if it's time to make a change, you make the change. But to me, Sonny Dykes, if he wins these next 2 games, probably saves his job, because I don't think they want to fire him, and you probably end up with 9 wins. And people look at 9 wins and say, okay, that's pretty solid. So it's not, he said this earlier this week, it's not a dire situation. And I agree that it's going to be viewed as not being a dire situation.
Okay, but so we both have watched a lot of football in our lives, heard a lot of coaches talk in our lives.
Yes.
I'm not saying it has to actually be a dire situation. I kind of want my coach to coach like it is, right? Like, am I crazy thinking that he probably shouldn't have said that?
So it was the midst of a 4, 5, maybe even 6-minute speech. I'll be honest with you. So it wasn't a one-off answer. I do think that makes a difference.
It got clipped though. Like it did.
It did get clipped. It did get clipped. People did not like the part about the expectations being raised. They took a lot of offense to that. But I don't know if I have a problem with him saying it wasn't dire. I think that afterwards he gave a lot of optimism about feeling like they can change. And I think that part was a little bit, they canceled out each other, right? So if you're losing and you have a couple of games that you lost back to back and you just got whipped by BYU, I probably don't want to hear about how the situation isn't dire. But then when you follow it up by saying it's not dire, essentially because we feel like we can lead the program away from where we currently are, it was more so hopeful than downplaying. So I didn't really mind it.
And that's an interesting way to look at, because like I almost thought that a dire situation, a desperate coach, that all these guys at this point it's his team. The roster is 100% his. There are no more Patterson holdovers. We're past all that, right? I wondered if a desperate roster, would that help them maybe, and kind of like those win one for the Gipper kind of, we got to win out to help coach save his job kind of ways. I'm not saying that they can't win without it. We'll talk about FanDuel later. It's a 1.5 point spread, right?
Yeah.
I just felt like that actually could help them in a weird way. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy for thinking that they maybe need that kind of pressure.
No, I don't think you're crazy for saying that could be an extra bit of fuel. I really don't. And we've seen it happen before. I don't think that the coaches, or excuse me, that the players don't like coach. I don't think that that's the case. I think they're frustrated just like he is. I actually was really happy that he finally showed some frustration about how the season was going. It's been one of my biggest critiques is that what you call wanting it to seem dire, wanting him to articulate it to be dire. I just wanted him to show some sort of fire. I just want him to show some sort of passion on that topic, right? And I feel like I finally got that on Tuesday. So I'll say this about desperation, because it's one of the more interesting points that you brought up this week on your show. I think that a desperate team could give you an extra bit of fuel, but I'm also not certain that we see that desperation because, quite frankly, yes, the desperation is to save coach's job now, but 2 weeks ago it was to save your season, and I didn't see it at that point. So now the question is, all right, you weren't desperate to get into the college football playoffs or fight for a chance to make the Big 12 title game because at that time it was still a long shot. You weren't desperate for that. Are you going to be desperate to save Coach Dykes' job? But I do think if they come out that way, they come out in passion, this is a game that you can steal. This is a game that you go up against the Cougs, maybe a little extra juice helps you. So I think that desperation being the word of the week and looking for that early, because let me tell you this, and I will say you agree with this, or ask if you agree with this. If you're desperate, it's going to show in the first quarter, right?
Yeah, there will be some gambly kind of thing, or there'll be an extra bit of fired up in the first, series, the first stop. Like, there's gonna be extra emotion showing somewhere early, I'd imagine.
TCU is terrible in the first quarter. They're terrible in the first quarter. So if you're going to be desperate, if you're going to come in with some extra juice, that juice shouldn't hit you in the second quarter. All right. Now listen, Parker, I've done it. You've done it. We've all had the Rugy at Reeds. We know that they kick in 36 hours. This ain't Rugy. Right? We're ready to go as soon as that whistle blows. I ain't got time to be sitting here and waiting. I'm ready for the action right now. That's the type of approach that you need to have when it comes to TCU if you're going to see desperate. And I'll say this. Like I said, one of the best points you brought up on your show is the idea that TCU could possibly be desperate. And if they're desperate, they'll finally cure something that has plagued them for the last month and a half. They've scored 10 points in the first quarter in the last 6 games. All 10 of those came against West Virginia in one game. 5 scoreless first quarters.
And Houston's had their own trouble running through West Virginia. I think we're going to get to the quarterbacks in the second segment, so I guess I should probably segue it somehow that way. But I think which quarterback gets hot first is going to be a big storyline in this one, kind of because it will shake out, like you're saying. Like, once you kind of get hot and rolling, can the other team do anything about it?
Yeah, and you know what? Let's get into those quarterbacks now, because I think Hoover needs to be hot in the first, second, third, and fourth quarter if TCU is going to pull off this upset. We'll take a look at that and Connor Weigman as we continue with the Locked On crossover of TCU and University of Houston. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Before I got on here with Parker, I was on the phone with my friend for about 30 to 40 minutes talking about which game that we're going to go to next year. When I was talking about what prices, or excuse me, what games to go to, I'm looking at the prices. I didn't go anywhere but Gametime. Do I want to go to Saints and Falcons next year? Well, let me look to see what Saints and Falcons is this year so I can get an idea of what I need to pay. I looked right in the section I wanted to, found the best deals, found the zone deals. They told me what the cheapest deal was. I love Gametime. And most importantly, when I click that seat, I can look to my left, I can look to my right and see everything that I'll see from where I'm sitting. It's everything I wanted, all in prices, view from the seat, being able to just estimate what the best price is for me and my budget. Go to Gametime, and it doesn't have to be a sporting event. It could be the ballet, it could be the theater, it could be the monster truck jam, it could be the circus, whatever it is. Go to Gametime and use the code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase if you are new to Gametime. As we continue rolling with this crossover of Locked On Horned Frogs and Locked On Cougs, I am Darrion Gray. That is Parker Ainsworth, Mr. Silky himself. Now, we're going to continue pushing forward, taking a look at what I think is quite an interesting matchup between two quarterbacks, one who's new to Houston and then one who's been in TCU for a while. If the Frogs are going to win this game, it's going to have to be on the back of Josh Hoover, because that is how they offensively move. That is the engine of this team. They have not tried to run the ball much, and they have not had a lot of success when running the ball. They have spent most of the season without their starting running back. But in my opinion, the bigger reason that you struggled is the struggles on the offensive line, because you have talent, Parker. There's talent on this team at running back. The running game wouldn't suggest it, but there is talent at this running back position. I like Jeremy Payne. I like Trent Battle. Kavorian Barnes, who's their top back, who's been out most of the year. I like him a lot. You just haven't had the blocking to consistently run the ball. So I'll say this. When looking at TCU, please do not think that they cannot run the football. That would not be true. They just don't do it consistently enough, but they have the ability. So if they ever just start running the ball well in a game, I won't be shocked. I'll be surprised, because they just, they haven't done it that much. But you've seen flashes of good running the football. Just not enough for me to say it's going to need to be the engine of the team. That's Josh Hoover.
Well, and you mentioned talented athletes. We should probably mention McAllister on the perimeter. He's as good as it gets. But he's a receiver. You mentioned the run game. Houston played an Arizona State team that was also similarly like one-dimensional because of themselves. Houston didn't force them to be that way. Mm-hmm. I thought Houston's pass rush, once they realized like, oh, they really are just going to throw the ball all game, they lined up and got after it. And so I'm intrigued by the offensive line problems you mentioned there, because in that game, Eddie Walls, Houston's defensive end, had 3 sacks.
Yes.
Like Carlos Allen's more of a run-stopping guy, but he can push a pocket and crush a pocket down. I think Houston's got some guys that can make some waves in a pass-heavy game if that's really what TCU wants to do. Based on what I'm reading off you, though, you're not seeing any sort of a shift in that this week. They're really going to try and get McAllister over the top a bunch of times, and I guess if you hit 3 of them, that's 21 points. That's a lot of points suddenly, but that's the game plan?
No, 100%. 100%. You're going to try to pass the football, right? Because TCU has struggled to run the ball because they don't do it, right? A lot of people, they can't run the ball. Yes, TCU has their struggles, so I would put them in the can't run the ball category. But I'd also put them in the don't run the ball category. And please understand, those are 2 different things. You have teams who just choose to not run and teams who don't run the ball well. TCU has been in both of those. Now, when it comes to the passing attack, of course, going to pass more because you have a quarterback like Josh Hoover. You have talent like Eric McAllister on the outside, who is a true home run threat with the ball in and out of his hands. I say this almost every time that I talk about McAllister, but I always want to stress it. You have guys who just stretch the field over the top, and they're going to beat you on go routes, and you have to watch for this. The safeties have to watch them. But then you have guys who can catch and run. McAllister does both, and he's a really big receiver too. So I like what McAllister brings to the table. I think that how Houston defends him will be interesting, because we've seen people sell out and then they end up letting Jordan Dwyer get something too. They have so many talented receivers. The yards won't look the best because Eric McAllister is the guy, Jordan Dwyer is the 2, But you have guys like Manjack, who is capable, Ed Small, who is capable. You have guys like Major Everhart, who's capable. I like DJ Rogers, that tight end. He's also capable. But those are guys you're just going to mix in. Parker, it's McAllister. That's who you need to worry. You need to worry about McAllister and Dwyer, but mostly McAllister, because that's who's going to get the most targets. He's looking, and I think that it's not ridiculous. It's going to be difficult, but it's not ridiculous to say that he could end up with the single season record in receiving yards by the end of this season, especially if he plays in a bowl game.
Well, and it's funny, Houston's having a senior day this weekend, and I made a face about Manjack coming back to Houston for senior day. I kind of wish, like in pro sports, they do like a welcome back kind of thing when you trade a player away. I almost wish they won't do that because it's college sports and the transfer portal is different. But everyone loved his time in Houston. They got talent receiving.
Yeah.
I'm interested, though. You mentioned game plan and like what Houston tries to take away and whatever. With Connor Weigman and the way he's run the football this year, is there any thought you have about TCU able to stop a running quarterback? Like between Bear Bachmeier, Avery Johnson, I feel like TCU has struggled some. I feel like Weigman has shown some people across the country that he's not the pocket passer that A&M tried to turn him into. And 409 yards, 9 touchdowns. He's really been a strong, not just a good runner, a strong runner for Houston.
I think that TCU, all in all, I think has actually done good against running quarterbacks. They struggled at times. So if you want to consider it hit or miss, I could accept that. But I don't think that they've been bad at it at all. They did a good job against Kevin Jennings from SMU, who's a very elusive runner, right? And they need to, I don't know what they've done since, but at that time, they probably need to let him run a little bit more, but they did a good job containing him. I thought Sam Levitt got the best of them in critical moments. Avery Johnson really didn't run the football that much. And then Bear Bachmeier, I went back to check the stats, and it felt like the stats were a little bit greater than the impact. But I'll say this, they were just kind of hurting TCU from every angle. So,
Fair enough.
It just – his running attack didn't stand out to me because they were passing the ball so well, and LJ Martin was running so well. So I admit that maybe that kind of eluded me. But for the most part, they faced a lot of running quarterbacks, and I don't think that they've done that poorly. Can they be got? Yes, they can. But I actually trust them. Caleb Elarms has turned into one of, if not my favorite player on this team at linebacker. He rushes the passer really well. He's a very good sideline-to-sideline runner. So if you want to just talk about the running back running the football, he's good for that as well. But they like to blitz him, and he's done, in my opinion, the best job corralling these mobile quarterbacks. When you get there, you don't see them get away from him a lot. So if he's going to be a spy or if he's going to be a rusher, I think that's somebody who could really do a good job of neutralizing the quarterback run.
Yeah, and even in the BOU game we got to watch, I thought that he, in a game that not many things went right for TCU, he still kind of stood out as a strong defensive presence. Okay, then I don't mean to spoil it, but it's not like you've won every game. Where is the weakness in the TCU defense? What is Houston looking to take advantage of this weekend? Because, again, Weigman is not looking like the 5-star number 3 player in the country prospect he was in high school, but he's had a great year, I'd argue, for Houston. They've put up some points against, in-conference opponents. And I guess I just want to know, like, where has the hole been then, in your opinion, in TCU?
Yeah, it's over the top. It's the corners. I think that TCU's defense has actually been pretty good this year. I think that they've shown more often than not they've played well. But those corners are the weak spot. Every time you hear somebody praise TCU, I would actually say, I want to make sure I'm saying this appropriately. I think that if you go through every position on the team, you're probably praising somebody somewhere other than corner. And I don't.
Okay.
That sounds harsh. But I can go through it. Caleb Elarms at linebacker. You have Jamel Johnson at safety. You have Bud Clark at safety, who will not play this game, by the way. So I'll be interested to see how they replace him. But Jamel Johnson at safety, Caleb Elarms at linebacker. You could go Nnamdi Obiaizor at linebacker. You have Devin Deal on the edge. You have Oyewale and Inba. Dimba, excuse me. You have these players on the interior and then Deal on the outside, who's just been an impact player. And you see there's multiple players at some position that you could highlight, but then you get to the outside and you just feel like that part of the team has not been the greatest. It feels like the unquestionable weak link on this team. So I'm looking for Amari Thomas. How do they stop him? And Jamel Johnson, in my opinion, excels the best closer to the line of scrimmage. He can defend deep, but he's at his best closer to the line of scrimmage. So I'll be interested to see how they defend against what has been a really good wide receiver for UH this year.
Well, wide receiver, and I got one other guy I'm going to predict to have a really big game in just a second, Darrion, which is a nice segue into a final segment. But before we get to that, we got some folks to tell people about their friends over at FanDuel. The NBA is back in action. The Rockets are good. The Mavs are a basketball team. There's no better place to get in on the action of the FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. And if you miss the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets and everything from who will score to the next fourth quarter comeback and more. Plus, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. It keeps every game more exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. As the time recording, Houston and TCU is a Houston -1.5 kind of matchup. So go get in on the action and make it a little bit more fun over at FanDuel. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet hits. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up today. Play your game with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
As we're wrapping up today's episode of the Locked On crossover between Locked On Horned Frogs and Locked On Cougs, I'm Darrion Gray. That is Parker Ainsworth. This is an interesting game, and I want to jump straight to something you mentioned, 1.5-point favorites. Typically, there is a swing for home games, unless that just doesn't apply in college, right? I thought that home field advantage tends to get a bit of a swing. One thing I've heard you talk about on the Big 12 Squad show is that Houston's home field advantage isn't as strong when playing Texas teams because oftentimes they have a base there. Do you expect senior night to be any different, seeing that it is a special day as opposed to just a regular home game?
I'm actually really interested in the crowd in this game, and that could be its own segment. So Houston has had, let's just be honest, very bad crowds. They've also played 4 weeknight games. They've only had 2 Saturday PM games going into this one, and one of those is on the road. And so I'm actually interested to see, like, part of the complaint has been you make us play at 11 a.m., you make us play on Thursday, you make us play on Friday. Well, now you have a Saturday afternoon game. Like, this is kind of time to put up or shut up for a lot of fans in a lot of ways. You're 8-2, looking to make it to a big bowl game. Frankly, Darrion, mathematically, you're not out of the Big 12 championship game. Practically speaking, you probably are, but mathematically, you are not. A lot of mojo going to this one that if the crowd has been making other excuses, you're kind of out of at this point. And we mentioned, Gametime sponsor the show. You can get in for pretty reasonably, frankly, using Gametime. So go check them out as well. As far as the home crowd advantage goes, they are not getting the 3-point favorite spread that you typically see for a home team in a push, which I think actually leans into, some people thinking there might be some bye-week rust or whatever going TCU's way, or maybe they're just going with you and thinking Josh Hoover's going to have the big day that you're predicting here.
Right. $40, by the way, right in the end zone.
Right. That's nice. That's nice.
If you're TCU, row 1, section 127, $50.
$50, and we get $20 off Locked On College. That's a free ad right there.
That's $30. Just sit right next to the bench.
At that point, they might give you a helmet.
Exactly. Hey, Hoover, you need to do it like this. When you sit row 1, all of a sudden you're a coach. So everybody's a coach when you sit at the front of the stands. Okay, I guess. Go get a corn dog. But no, in all seriousness, I do watch because one of the fatal flaws for TCU has been road games, but specifically hostile environments. I don't think that they struggle to go on the road. You saw what they did against North Carolina. But then one can say that was the beginning of the season. That was years ago, right? How dare you compare it? Because that was the last time that they played a road game that wasn't a hostile environment. I always say this. Yes, there was a lot of fanfare. There was a lot of cameras, but that was more of a celebrity shoot. That was more of a big time event as opposed to a hostile environment. Arizona State, hostile. Kansas State, hostile. BYU, hostile. West Virginia, I was gonna say Morgantown, but just West Virginia, hostile. Like these are all hostile environments. So yeah, Now you get to UH where the crowds have been kind of questionable. The fan output, not as far as support, but just presence has been questionable. You wonder if that's going to feel like more of a neutral site. And I think that's something that could really be something that they take advantage of, something that helps out TCU and allows them to just go in there and play a little bit more free. Your season is over. You're going to make a bowl game because you're bowl eligible. And really at this point, you're not going to make one that we know anyway. You're just not. This is not going to be a team that's in a bowl game that's high profile. You should feel free. There should be no sort of restraint for a lot of these guys. They're talking about, I heard him talking to DJ Rogers, who's a senior. Well, he was talking about how you just want to make sure, you leave seeds for the next guys. And that's where we at with 2 weeks left in the season. To me, that tells a lot about the team. For me, though, I think that, hey, you got me drinking the Kool-Aid. I'll be honest with you. I've been high on Houston. It's all because of you. It's all because of you, Parker. I have
one. I got one.
Yeah, man. I drank the juice. But I'm going to go with Houston winning this game by probably about 10 points. I think that they do squeeze out close ones, and they just seem to be able to finish. That's something else that TCU doesn't do well. BYU light. BYU light is what I described, and I'm going to say this real briefly. But I described it as BYU light in the sense that both teams tend to just finish games. They tend to win close ones. Both teams finish strong, as I mentioned, and they also have a road game environment. It's a bunch of other things, but I don't want to go too far on that because I want to get to your prediction.
Well, BYU light's interesting because in Provo, things are really light is kind of my understanding of how things are. No, so I look at Houston at home. For whatever reason, they've had a bunch of close games. And then I know Willie has only been there a year and a half, a little over a year and a half at this point. For what feels like my entire life, almost independent of who the coach is, Houston has come out of bye weeks and had a kind of a rusty start to the next week, if not a rusty full game the next week. So I've been saying more like 24-17. You could talk me into, I think both teams would be low scoring because I think Houston's defense actually is going to get after it. But offensively, I think there's just going to be some timing. You mentioned Mari Thomas. He and Weigman do have a connection, and he's a great receiver. I think the guy, though, is going to be tight end Tanner Koziol. Tanner Koziol is 6'8". Some people say he's actually 6'9". He's listed 6'8", 240 pounds. But he like lines up in the slot and like runs receiver routes, and he's a tight end, but mostly because he's just a big receiver. And I'll be interested to see what Houston does with him in this game, because you mentioned a linebacker that I'm going to butcher the name of is like Ibrahim Zor.
Obi Izor.
Yeah. I don't know that that's a great matchup in coverage, but they're also down as safety. So I don't know what they're going to do to cover up the tight end spot. And every quarterback loves a tight end, right? So I think that's going to kind of be, they're going to probably try and I would imagine cover up Amari. I could see Tanner Koziol having a big night though, or big afternoon, I should say. And that's kind of where I think they're going to find most of their offense. So I'm going to sit at 24-17. I think it's a closer game, but not like a lot closer. I think that you see a stop with 3 or 4 minutes left that kind of feels like a nail in the coffin kind of thing. That's where I'm going on this one. But 9 wins for Houston in Willie Fritz's year 2 and plenty of football left to go is pretty exciting, Darrion. Pretty exciting place to be.
Yeah, no, 100%. 9 wins. I think, like I said at the beginning, 2 teams, 2 different trajectories, and it's really interesting to see where they're going. Before we get out of here, I want everybody to know. So everybody here, they know I'm new to Locked On Horned Frogs. If you're coming over from Locked On Cougs, I'm new. But I am not new to doing shows with Parker Ainsworth. And this is from
pulled it up.
This is years ago, right? This is look, I told you we have good times, okay? So you see the laughs, you see the smiles. That hasn't changed. This had to be about 3-4 years ago, man. This had to be a while ago.
Well, so for the folks at Locked On Cougs that don't remember, Darrion, you used to host Locked On HBCU, and you covered multiple conferences at that point. And it was early in my time with the network, but we were playing. Houston was playing. I believe it was TSU. You're a TSU alum, but I believe it was TSU, right? And so I was like, "Hey, we got an HBCU guy. I need to talk to somebody about this game."
Yeah, it was great.
And we have talked about a lot of stuff that wasn't even basketball, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, no, we did. And you know what? I remember it stuck with me. I'm gonna tell you why it stuck with me, Parker. because I don't know if I knew you were new or whatnot. I was new. So I came in November 21. So I'm actually bumping up against my 4-year anniversary this week, I think. It was Thanksgiving week. So anyway, quick story. Don't nobody want to talk to the HBCU guy. To be honest with you.
That's so, we say like that's so sad.
They don't. They did not want to talk to me. There was nothing that they felt the need to talk to me about. No one really, like, I was in a bubble. I was in an FCS mid-major bubble. So no one ever was like, oh, whatever. Like, when they played the HBCU, they went on with their regular scheduled program. And I was just sitting here not talking to nobody, waiting for a conference play to kick in. And then when we came to basketball season, same thing. Talk about football during out of conference time, wait for the conference schedule to kick in. So Parker was he was the first and one of the only people who, when I was at Locked On HBCU, to actually reach out and I worked with. So when I came in Big 12, I have been waiting for this moment the whole time, because that was I like talking to people. So that was great for me. So just flash that back up, and there you go, man. Still laughing, but we can get serious. Okay.
But we can get serious. There you go.
We can get serious.
That's an old apartment too. Oh man, that's a throwback picture.
Yeah, man, that's throwback. I don't even, I let my hair hang. I got a little different beard. Okay. You know what I'm saying? You got different hat game going on. You got be someone in the back because, don't have the shoes. Great, man. I just wanted to bring that flashback. But looking forward to Saturday, tomorrow, TCU, Horned Frogs, Cougs. Be there, be square, whatever they say. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, I think I'm going to come back to you Saturday morning with a live show in the morning time. So be on the lookout for that. Take care. Stay blessed. Peace. This one too. Do both of them.